Business is to approve our minutes from November 9th. I'm going to call on our Vice Chairman, Gooch.
Second.
Have a motion.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have read the minutes, Mr. Chair. Everything is appropriate. My motion is to approve as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next order of business is public comments. We have had no requests to make public comments, so we'll move right along to our investment report. And I see Mr. Beatty headed up here with his festive red shirt.
'Tis the season. I'm Ted Beatty, the county trustee. Very little change in rates. In fact, the only change was the LGIP rate went up 1 basis point from 539 to 540. Everything else stayed stable. Probably the biggest news is we were able to lock in some CDs for 2 years at 5.5%, which was really significantly above the curve, and that was kind of the biggest change from the investment side. That's my report.
I have a motion from Commissioner Johnson, second from Piercy. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of his report signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next is our fund condition report. Call on Michael.
Good evening. A couple things I'll point out. Our cash balances are up due to we're now starting to get into the bulk of property tax collection season. So our cash balances will continue to go up. And then I want to point out a couple revenues because I get quite a bit of questions about this. We are continuing to see a little slowing in the economy. Our sales tax is not growing at the rate that it has in the last probably 3 to 5 years. However, just because we did budget and anticipate for that, so I do feel comfortable with where we are as far as our budget ratio. However, we are down on the growth of where we have been for the last few years, and we are watching that closely. Our adequate facilities tax continues to be up over the prior year, so that is good news as we deal with a lot of the growth that is coming. And also on the revenue report, as far as property tax collection, we're down about 1%, almost 1% from where we normally are. However, I did look down, check with the trustee's office today. We have one large taxpayer who has not paid that sometimes has traditionally paid in the month of November, and so I do feel like we're right where we should be on that as well. And as Mr. Beatty stated, our interest rates continue to be up, and so that is also going to be reflected on our revenue report there as we are exceeding what we thought we would for investment income. And that's my report.
Any questions on the report? Any motion? I have a motion by Commissioner Piercy. Second, Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is the risk management financial report.
Ed Elam, Insurance and Risk Management Director for Rutherford County. In the 264 fund for the month of November, revenue $1,733,257. Expenses $1,632,484. Revenue less expenditures, a positive $100,774. For the calendar year total, you have in revenue $21,782,336. Expenses $18,224,333. Revenue less expenditures, you have a positive $3,558,003. And the total for the fiscal year is revenue $9,113,189. Expenses $9,268,107. Revenue less expenditures, a negative $154,918. In the 266 fund, 23-24 fiscal year for the month of November, workers' comp, $89.63. OJI, $35,245.96. Total for the month, $35,335.59. Year-to-date total for workers' comp, $4,766.77. OJI, $185,120.02. Total for the year-to-date, $189,886.79. County attorney expense for the month of November, $35,883.60. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Heard the report. Anyone on the committee have a question? If not, we'll also entertain a motion.
I so move to approve.
Commissioner Sereno moves to approve. Second, Commissioner Gooch. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, and hope you all have a Merry Christmas.
Next is a general fund budget amendment for the Correctional Work Center. I think Bill's here. Yeah.
Superintendent Cope, Rutherford County Correctional Work Center. Tonight I'm here to request a budget amendment. What we'd like to do is move money from our insurance recovery over to maintenance and repair services of the building and the lease payments. Just to give you a little background on where that money came from, we had a donated van. Just to be clear, it's not one of those lease vehicles. It was a donated van that was rear-ended and total loss to it, and it paid out $32,751, which is not going to come close to what it would take to buy a newer one. So to prioritize some of that money, we really need to be able to purchase a coil in our heat and air unit in the food service area. Years of pulling grease and food particles up through the heat and air has really clogged that thing up beyond repair, so we're going to have to replace it. And then move $15,551 over to lease payments to pay off hopefully a couple of those leased vehicles that we are into. I'll take any questions.
Heard the request. Any discussion or questions? Not again, I'll entertain a motion. I assume this came through public safety.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Irvin moves to approve.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Sereno. Any further discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Next is a general fund budget amendment for emergency management. Welcome.
Chris Clark, Director of Emergency Management. Tonight, we're requesting a budget amendment. It's being requested to recognize the fiscal year 20 and 21 Homeland Security grants. These are revenues that will be coming in and placed in appropriate line items.
They've drug this one out a while since you've got 2020 revenues still showing up. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Not unheard of.
No, sir.
Actually got
So
those
this is
today.
just a pure grant?
It is, there's a no max grant. We get that every year. I mean, Chris can elaborate on what it's being spent on, but we basically are in a group with, Davidson, I don't know who else, but that money is coming from the federal government, and we use it for what's deemed most useful, and it's usually shared stuff that goes from different counties. Sometimes it's just for us, but, we still share it. But this is an ongoing, that's since 9/11, I think is when this first started. Of course, it's a lot less than it used to be, but.
We've already spent a lot of this money that we're getting reimbursed for in prior years. And so this is us booking that grant revenue coming now. And then we do have a few carryover amounts in here as well. So a lot of this money was already spent in previous years.
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Johnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Harris? Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinial?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries.
The second is a contract with the Tennessee Advanced Communication Network, or better known as TACN. We have our backup radio system on the TACN system. In the event that our current system goes down, we automatically move over to the states. This is a renewal contract, and the reason we bring this to you is that in the event that the federal government and the state does not fund this radio system that the state owns, then they can charge us $200 per radio every year. However, they give us a year in advance that this would occur. So we, according to the contract, we can abandon that contract we got to give them 30 days. So, and that's the reason we're here at budget, because it had that $200 per radio in the event. To kind of keep you abreast of this also is that we have multiple counties going on to that network. I do not vision any time in the near future by any means that they would not fund that, just because of so many smaller counties coming on and the burden that it would cause on them. So currently, this is a no expenditure contract.
The state troopers are on this line too, aren't they?
Yes, sir. Bedford County just come on, Cannon, Coffee, and multitude of other counties are going on that state network.
I know that was one of our options when we opted to the direction we went. Any other questions for?
I'm curious how many radios?
We have about 3,000 users. We have anywhere from school buses to sheriff's department, EMS, fire, solid waste, multiple departments, Paul's, Correction Center.
$600,000, quick math.
The expected value is probably not that hot, not that much risk.
Agree with that. Any other questions for the director? Not, we'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion. Second. Any further discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinial?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Next is item number 9, application for assistance to firefighters grant.
A little background, about 10, 12 years ago, the Allen C. York Hospital, the Veterans Administration, they shut down their fire department they had in-house, and they contracted with the city of Murfreesboro. Well, over the years, that contract got up to $1.3 million. So at that time, Rutherford County didn't have I think we had one station, but since that time, VA has contacted me and said they expect us, because that property is in the county, surrounded by the county, they wanted Rutherford County Fire Rescue to cover that hospital. So they broke their contract with the city, and so we're covering that hospital now. And with that in mind, with the height of that hospital and the height of new homes that are 30 foot off the ground, most of our hand ladders are 22 foot. I'm requesting permission from y'all to write a grant for the Assistance Firefighter Grant for a $2 million ladder truck. The county's portion would be 10% of that. So if we write the grant and we are granted that grant, I'll have to come back through public safety and budget to get that approved, accepted. Any questions for Chief Farley?
All we're doing is you're just asking for this committee to approve your application for the grant.
That's correct. Just apply for it.
Accepted, then you'll have to come back for us to accept the grant.
Yes, sir. That's the way we always do all grants.
Mr. Chairman, I move to go forward.
I have a motion.
Second.
Second. All right, discussion.
Mr. Chair.
I recognize Mr. Piercy first.
Is the Veterans Hospital the only place this will be used?
No, sir. If you notice, we built Rockville High School is 2-story, and most of the homes out in Walt Hill area and across the county, if you notice, a lot of homes, they got a garage and the living room downstairs, and the bedrooms and everything else is upstairs. So like I say, the average house like me and you were raised in is probably 20 foot off the ground, with the gutters now are about 30 foot. So they're building more narrow and up. That way they can get more houses in a plat.
Is the ladder truck considerably longer than your normal fire engines?
It's probably about 45 foot, but based on what we built our fire halls, it will hold it.
The average residential driveway, you can't get in, can you?
Pardon?
The average residential driveway, you couldn't get the ladder truck in it, could you?
Probably, because they're about the same width as the engine.
I was thinking they were longer.
They are longer, but they're not wider.
Length is important on that part. Thank you.
Where will this be stationed? Where would it be stationed?
It would be stationed. Of course, now right now, when you order a new fire engine or ladder truck, they're about 2 to 2.5 years to 3 years behind before once you purchase it to get it. So it would be housed at the Walt Hill the new fire station by the school. They're building a new Walt Hill public safety building on the far side of Walt Hill School going outbound, which will be the north side. Mr. Gooch?
Thank you. So you're saying that we got the contract that Murfreesboro City had?
No, we don't have a contract. They were paying $1.3 million, and they got tired of paying that $1.3 million because they're in the county, and because our fire department wasn't adequate enough at that time to cover it. Now that we are, they wanted us to start covering it, and they broke the contract with the city. So it's actually in our jurisdiction, so we have to cover it.
Okay, so there's not any influx of money coming in?
I wish there was, but there's not.
Okay. And so how would we protect them now without the ladder truck?
Yeah, all we got right now is the engines.
Okay.
And hopefully we won't need a ladder truck until we have one, but we have to use what we got.
You have mutual aid with the city of Murfreesboro, the city of Smyrna, the city of Laverne,
if we call the city of
Eagleville, they'll all respond their trucks.
And the 200,000 would come from where?
That'd be up for y'all, budget committee to determine that.
Any other questions from the committee? I have one. How often will you be running this on the EMS calls? Or your other engines? Why would that be different? You're going to have an engine that you're not going to run EMS out of?
Ladder truck at that same station. Only be dispatched on specific calls.
How is that going to affect our ISO rating in Eagleville or other parts of the county like Heatcraft out on Woodbury Highway?
I mean, it shouldn't affect it either way.
I agree, it shouldn't. Any other questions? Chairman Phillips, you recognize.
Just one more to point out, a whole lot, maybe even most of the industrial commercial development that's going on in the county is now out in the unincorporated areas. So this truck would serve a very useful purpose in the case of emergency at some commercial industrial development that's going on out in the county.
That's correct. And also, if you had a situation where somebody was off deep in a deep hole, or you need to extend that ladder truck off, you could also do technical rescue off in that ladder too. So it's got multiple purposes that we use it for. It wouldn't be something we just run down a road just for medical calls or any kind of calls. It'd be for certain specific calls.
And is this a state grant or federal grant?
It's a federal grant. It's a Assistance to Firefighters grant through FEMA.
And what, just off the top of your head, have we ever applied for this type of this grant? Or do you know the likelihood that we would be able
Well, last year we applied for a safer grant for 30 firefighters. We just got denied that today. And we also applied for turnout gear, which was through the AFG, and we got denied for that. But one of the questions on the grants now, it asks you, do you cover a federal facility? We can check that box now because the VA Allen C. York is a federal facility. So that gives us a leg up on the grant.
I understand that. Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief Commissioner Piercy?
Are your firefighters trained to work off of a ladder truck?
Yes, sir. When they go to aerial, they have to go through pump class to the Tennessee State Fire Academy, and they also do aerial training. So they're both certified in pumping and the operation of aerials.
Does the ladder truck carry its own water, or does it have to be nursed by a hydrant or another truck?
Nursed by hydrant.
By a hydrant.
Yeah, most of the time, the tank on a ladder truck is probably 300 to 500 at the most.
Thank you.
Could you apply the same grant for a different style fire engine like we're currently using? Any other questions from the committee? We have a motion and a second. Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinial?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Thank you.
Motion carries. Okay, general purpose school fund budget amendment is next.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Brian Runyon. I'm the CFO of Rutherford County Schools. I also want to introduce beside me Dr. Kay Martin. She is the Deputy Director of Schools. We have her here because usually, most of the time, these meetings coincide with our meetings, our school board meetings as well. So Dr. Sullivan actually has to be at those meetings most of the times, and he's had to try to run back over here to meet, to be here to be able to answer questions. So now Dr. Martin is here to answer, those questions that are non-financial, that are in my realm. So I just want to introduce her. We've got a couple of budget amendments here, and what these budget amendments are accepting state grants money. And the first one is for Fund 141, which is our general purpose school fund budget amendment. This amendment increases budgeted Fund 141 revenue and expenditures to recognize the awarded amount of the state-funded FY 23-24 public school security grant and the carryover amount of the FY 22-23 Safe Schools grant. These monies will be used to provide digital threat assessment training for SROs, active shooter training to school staff, the purchase of radios, repeaters, radio software, weapons detection systems, bullet restraint film, cameras, and portable lighting and generators. Both grants total the amount of $2,361,940 and have been approved by the State Department of Education. There is not a required local match for either grant.
Well, I ask the committee, you want him to continue, or you want to go ahead and vote on this? We'll continue.
Okay. The second amendment increases the budgeted Fund 141 revenue and expenditures to recognize the awarded amount of the state-funded FY 23-24 Innovative Schools Model Grant. This grant will be allocated to fund additional CTE positions at RCS high schools. It also provides other supplies, materials, and equipment and capital outlay for the innovation and CTE programs of study at the high school and middle school levels. The grant is for the amount of $17 million and has been approved by the State Department of Education, and there is no required local match. And I'll take any questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Recognize.
how many CTE positions is this going to fund, or you're proposing?
I don't have an exact number for you, but it will be a smaller amount. Higher back with this, though, it will kind of come back to us with the TISA funding, because those teachers will help those students.
Okay, so it's for $17 million. That's a one-time thing. Is that correct?
It's over a 3-year period.
And what I'm concerned with is increasing more and more positions, which means we have to increase our budget. So is that something you're taking in consideration on that?
Yes, a lot of these positions, we actually are already currently, some of them we already currently are paying out of GP right now currently. So we're just taking and moving that out of GP, and then we'll put it back into GP once the grant's over. But the way this is structured, the first year we can only pay, so if we have, say, 20 positions in there, we can pay those all 20 positions. The next year, it's only structured to pay 75% of salaries, what's left of that grant. And then the last year, you're only allowed to pay 25% of that, what's left of the grant, towards salaries. So each year, we're going to have to pull more and more back, and that's the reason why we're not putting it all into salaries, because we don't want to try to, strain the GP budget as well, to pull those salaries back in. And a lot of those positions are EA positions. So when I say that, educational assistants, so they're not as strenuous on the budget as your teaching positions, but there may be a few teaching positions as well.
Any other questions from the committee? Commissioner Gooch.
Okay, on this one, it's my understanding from Health and Ed that this grant, part of it will be to build 2 buildings. One in the north side, am I wrong? Yes.
That's not going to be something that's going to be feasible for us.
Okay, so this is different than what we saw at Health and Ed or passed through Health and Ed?
No, this is actually the same grant for Health and Ed. At one time, there was talk about building an additional, the center that Dr. Martin was talking about. But when we reviewed it and realized, or also leasing buildings, but we realized that was going to go against the bond rating for the county, and we did not want to do that, obviously. So, but in order to be able to build that building, it's going to cost more than what we've got in the grant to be able to do. Also able to put the equipment and all the supplies and materials, as well as fund some teaching positions.
Okay, so the original thought was 2 buildings, one in the north and one in the south.
That was the original thinking, or one main building, and that it's just not feasible to be able to do it.
And so now it's just kind of the upgrade programs at existing schools.
Yeah, the majority that you see, that $8 million, if you look at the budget amendment, the 8.6 7 million, I believe it is, in construction. That's mainly going to go towards the existing CTE classrooms that are already in the schools to upgrade those programs with more bigger classrooms, maybe addition of additional classrooms at the schools that already have the CTE program.
Okay, thank you. And on the first one with the public safety grant, the Safe School grants, on the digital threat assessment and training, do we know who will be doing the training?
As of right now, as far as that digital threat assessment training, we do not know. I know currently on our board agenda, we do have somebody that they're talking about approving tonight, but I don't know where it's going to end up at because with the price of it, I think it's going to have to be a situation where it has to be bid out. So I don't think it's going to happen, but there's no firm company yet that's going to provide it that we know. So that's going to be with our school safety coordinator, Patty Oster, and Sean Martin. They both will get, work with either our local public safety or else, another vendor or somebody that provides that. But I think from what I understand, this type of training for a vendor is there's only one or two out there that actually provide it. So I don't think we're going to, without bidding it out, I don't foresee us being able to do it.
So there.
Use the mic, please, hon.
We've already had reunification training. We had that this past summer in June. You maybe saw that. And then we already have some things scheduled for January 5th with our SRO officers and our administrators in-house that we have a training with them. All administrators and our SROs will have training with them as well.
Okay, so thank you for that. And the school board's talking about it tonight, but you feel like it's going to end up being bidded out?
With the cost of it, I see no way that there isn't, that it can't be.
Okay.
If we would be violating our purchasing procedures if we did.
Thank you.
Mr. Irving.
Okay, couple of quick kind of preliminaries. Neither of the two grants impacts our MOE, right? Maintenance of effort?
Does not.
Okay. And neither increases any ongoing obligations, meaning, as Commissioner Harris pointed out, or I think maybe another person, there's no additional positions, there's no, that would increase our ongoing obligations with respect to the budget. And I'm sorry because I couldn't really hear the answers, is what I'm.
Correct. It's the current, what it will do is it will cover some of the current teaching positions that we're already paying for out of GP. If we add any additional positions, it's going to be educational assistants and maybe one or two teaching positions that we will be able to pick up out of GP once the grant's over with. But with that, the way the grant is structured, the first year, we could use 100% of the grant for salaries and benefits, but we're not going to do that because it would not be sustainable, 3 years down the road. The second year, we're only going to be able to use 75% of what's left over for those grants. So we're going to have to start pulling back from salaries at that point in time. And then the last year, we can only use 25% of what's left for salaries as well. So as we go along with the grant, we're going to have to start pulling those positions back. But like I said, some of the current positions that we're funding, we already currently are funding in the general purpose fund.
And can you, if I understood you right, you really don't know what you're going to spend the $8.7 million on yet?
From what I understand, it's going to go more towards the classrooms that we currently have in the high schools and middle schools. It's going to upgrade the equipment in there, probably upgrade the classrooms themselves.
Specific examples.
Yeah, let me give her.
I'll give you a few more specific examples because I brought that for you tonight. At Smyrna High School, it'll go towards some of the advanced manufacturing program there. At Riverdale High School, the horticulture facility and a greenhouse. Rockville High School, it'll increase their fire science program. Animal Science Academy at Oakland High School, a welding program at Laverne High School. We also are looking as a district using some of this money certification trainings and so forth. This will also, this is for middle schools and high schools. So our middle schools will receive $500,000 each, and each of our high schools will receive $1 million each. And so all of them will benefit from that. In our middle school areas, we'll keep increasing our STEM programs and our health science program. We also have an exploration program that helps them explore all the different career pathways. So when they get to high school, they're more educated on what pathway is best for them.
So y'all already put together a plan. This is how you're going to spend it and everything else. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
so,
sir.
And you're pretty much locked into that by...
So the state is very, we have to get permission from the state, and they're going to monitor this a minimum of twice a year. We have to have all the money spent by June 30th of 2026. But anything that we do or any amendment or change that we make from the grant plan has to be approved by the state before we can do that.
Okay. And I'm presuming from what you're saying, the state is the one auditing this? And how does that work?
This is a grant from the governor.
You're going to have 2 audits on this. Before it comes here, you're going to have it's going to have to be approved by the state before they would modify this. The state will approve it. The State Department of Education will monitor this, but then you're going to have a second audit from the State Comptroller's Office that will audit this grant every year as well. The twice-a-year monitoring comes from the State Department of Education. And then you have a once-a-year additional audit from the State Comptroller's Office who will look at a little way heavier on the financial side of the grant. The Department of Education's monitoring will weigh heavier on the compliance side of the grant. But as this grant is fluid, they will have to update their grant plan with the state anytime they change it. And additionally, they'll have to update at least once a year with the state on what they spend and things like that. So it'll really have to be audited by 2 people, but one is more lean towards the compliance monitoring side, one leans towards more of the financial audit side.
Okay. And is there any reporting back to this committee in terms of what it's being spent on?
There's no requirement. There's no requirement for that. At the end of the day, this money is coming. This money will come regardless to them. And based on the budget requirements, they do have to allocate a plan. And like they mentioned, their original plan was to lease a building that I heard of. That was not feasible based on the time frame that the grant funds had to be spent in, and based on the multi-year lease really constitutes debt for us. So that wasn't feasible. But no, there's no requirement to come back to this committee. Now, one of the things that they'll have to include every year during the budget process is to talk about this. This will be in their budget, any unspent funds. So in that sense, it would come back to you every year if they don't spend it all, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, we'll entertain the motion.
Mr. Chair, these 2 did come from Health and Ed, and I think it got unanimous support, if I remember correctly. So my motion is to approve both of these grant amendments.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Sereno. Further discussion? Hearing none, call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank y'all.
And was that Dr. Martin? Okay, you come back anytime other than Dr. Sullivan. Okay, you just keep him at the school board meeting.
I will make sure to tell him that.
Item 11, general fund budget transfer for the jails.
Good evening. I'm Steve Spence, the Deputy Chief at the Sheriff's Office. This amendment is to provide additional funds for overtime needed for employees covering vacant positions and to provide funds for food service supplies. Requesting to take $503,000 from the guard's salary, placing $500,000 into the overtime line item and $3,000 in the food supplies line item.
Heard the request. Any questions for Chief Spence?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second, Commissioner Piercy. Any further discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, item 12, general fund budget amendment for agriculture extension. I don't see Mr. Tuggle here. You going to take this one, Michael?
So this money is being requested tonight out of the committed fund balance that's set aside for the Ag Center out there. And then part of that, they have also provided a breakdown of how they plan on spending that money. It'd be $2,000 for painting and cleaning of the community center and barn, $3,000 for removing dead trees and cleanup around the property, and $25,000 for new LED lights in the auditorium and meeting spaces and lobby. And again, this is coming out of their committed fund balance set aside that has to be spent at the Ag Center.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Item 13, general fund budget amendment for building maintenance.
So I'm going to cover this one tonight because it's coming from the finance office since this grant has been approved. However, Adam Dodd and Mr. Lodel are also in the audience tonight if you have any specific questions. But a grant was approved previously for the preservation and records in the county courthouse for HVAC equipment. And so this is recognizing the revenue from that grant and booking the expenditure. And since it'll be used to purchase HVAC equipment, it is under the county maintenance's line items.
And a no-match grant.
That's correct. And again, the grant was already approved and awarded. This is only to recognize the budget amendment side of that grant.
Heard the explanation. Do I hear a motion or further discussion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. All right, item 14 is the 2024-25 budget calendar and schedule.
So attached on your iPads tonight is going to be a schedule just like in years past. The first attachment on there is going to be an overall budget calendar that's going to lay out important dates and timelines for the entire budget calendar starting in January. And then the next attachment or PDF is going to be the budget committee specific meeting schedule. And this was pretty challenging this year to prepare because of a holiday. It's also a leap year. And so I think me and Mark went around with several iterations of this, trying to get all the deadlines in place. And this is about one of the only ways we could to get it to work. So I know there's quite a bit of meetings in May and at the first part of June right there, but that's about the only way we could get it to work. We did add a new holiday in June, and so we had to move our public hearing. There's because of Juneteenth. And then also we had to move health and ed and public safety up a week to get everything to line up and allow the school board to have a chance to meet as well.
Guys, look at this. If you see some conflicts in your personal schedule, bring them to Michael's attention or to this committee's attention, because this is the only chance we're going to get to modify this, especially with him talking about a tight budget. And one thing I will mention, if you notice, our budget cycle ends on the end of June, 1st of July. And the reason we do that a few days earlier, that gives us a chance to, hey, if we can't resolve it on that tax day is what we call it, then that gives us a day or two that we can work on that if we have to. Occasionally see horror stories in the newspapers about other counties in the past that their budgets are not settled, and then they've got school buses that are not running and all kinds of other stuff going on. Fortunately, we don't have that problem here because we set this schedule with enough time for us to settle our differences and get that done. But again, look over the schedule. If there's a conflict you see, maybe we could do something with it. This one's going to be tight. But any other questions for Michael? Mr.
Motion to approve is submitted.
I have a motion to approve. We can vote on it.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? We can come back and ask for a change. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Got another item here, item 15, which was brought to us from steering. Michael, I guess I'll let you talk about this one.
So a couple years ago, the state increased what was allowed for a bid limit for counties and local governments and local entities. And so over the last several years, several entities, including our own school system and several counties around us, have increased their bid limit. And over the years, that does increase. The state sets the cap for that, and they generally increase it. You know, if inflation goes up a lot, they increase it on that. So tonight, what you have before you is a request to increase our purchasing limit from $25,000 to $50,000, which would mirror the state law of what that allows. Now, also here tonight is several department heads in the back to talk about how this affects their department specifically, if you have questions. But a lot of times what we're running into is used vehicle, for example, used to be able to purchase for $15,000, and now that's going to be well into the $25,000, $30,000 range if we're purchasing a used truck. And a lot of other issues, for example, maintenance department has a lot of issues with HVAC repairs, roof repairs and stuff, because it's not just one purchase, it's any liked purchase combined that you would have to bid. And so that's what we run into. OIT is probably the other department that it affects the most, too, with servers and switches. A lot of those are going to reach that $25,000 limit very quickly now. But like I said, there are department heads here tonight if they needed to give specific examples, but that is the request before you. Additionally, I have spoken with Nick, the county attorney. He did prepare this draft tonight that is on your iPad. And so we did go back and look at the previous iteration, the last time this was changed. And the reason we have to do this through steering and through the full commission is because our purchasing limit is set in our private act, which is different than necessarily the school board, which theirs is the $50,000, but they're allowed to change it by resolution. And so that is why you're seeing it as a private act change before you tonight.
Questions from the committee? Commissioner Booth.
So the process would be, if we approve this tonight, the full commission would hear it next week, requiring a 2/3 vote because it's a private act. And then that one vote, then the legislators would have it and we'll see it back again this spring, maybe, or late winter. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Motion, a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? We've got a second, Commissioner Sereno. Discussion.
I have a question. So just to be completely clear, this does not affect anything on professional services?
It does not.
Okay.
That would, just to further expand, that is going to be clear, that is professional services is under a different title and chapter in TCA code.
We don't have to bid professional services.
Well, in certain circumstances, you're going to have, and the ones that are applying that we've had here recently, you have to have an RFQ or an RFP, a request for qualifications or a request for proposal, which is what we have done on our professional services, and those generally will go to purchasing committee and then on to the commission.
If this was to pass, Michael, and say the workhouse needed to replace an item, HVAC or whatever, that was right underneath the 50,000 mark, would they have to get competitive bids or
three written quotes? Three written quotes.
That, and these written quotes, if we call that, then whoever wrote those quotes would have to live up to that. Is what you're saying. So basically, it's a contract.
No, I'm not saying it's a contract. So generally, right now, in the last, at least I know, 2 mayors have chosen to be more restrictive. Right now, we're allowed to go up to $10,000, between $10,000 and $25,000. We're supposed to have 3 written quotes. However, I know the last 2 mayors have chosen to be more restrictive, down to $5,000. So that is under the mayor's purview to require more written quotes. But what happens is the department heads bring those 3 written quotes, they turn that in with their requisition, and they work with the mayor's office for purchasing with those written quotes. And so this does not mean that the mayor will choose to be less restrictive. This just allows us to not have to do the 2-week out to bid and the bid requirements up to $50,000. But I wouldn't say it constitutes a contract unless they sign and we were to sign that quote, and then I think it would institute a contract between us and them. But as far as written quotes, we would expect them to honor it. but I don't know that it would be enforceable if we didn't sign it or if it didn't become before a body. I'd have to look and see how the quote was written, what caveat was in there.
But we would have the right to withdraw, letting them do the work if they couldn't.
Yes, we would have that right, and we often do. A lot of times what will happen is the department will turn in 3 written quotes, and we'll go with the lowest one, and we'll call them back, and they go, oh, this is bigger than the scope, or they don't honor that price, and we do have that option to pull out and go, we can do 3 written quotes again. It's very flexible to try to use the most advantageous price and service for the county, because one of the other options, or one of the other issues we're having is, once we have to bid so much, a lot of our local vendors sometimes have trouble bidding, because sometimes bidding a large HVAC project or fire system upgrade and stuff like that, they don't have a dedicated bidding person like some of our large corporations do. And so I think part of the hope with this, after speaking with some of the department heads, would allow us to go to some more local people and try to negotiate to allow, we want them to bid. We want more bidders. And so a lot of times what we have too is only 2 bidders, because some people say it's not worth their cost to bid. So that's one of the pros to this.
My concern, I remember when we moved this to 25,000, and I think I was the only one voted against it because I thought, man, that's a lot of money. 50,000 is a lot of money also, but however, as Michael mentioned, our county mayor, whoever that is at that time, is our purchasing agent, and a lot of this is up to his discretion as far as levels, but I'm hearing that there are some other lower levels that are basically stumbling blocks, where they've got like 2,500 limit or something like that, and I'm not aware of particulars on that, but I mean, going to 50,000, it's not going to change those problems from what I'm hearing. Can you elaborate on that? Or
like I said, the state law specifically says 40% of the current bid threshold is where you have to get the written quotes. So currently right now that would be $10,000 with our bid limit being 25. And like I said, the last 2 mayors on most occasions have really wanted the department heads to go out and try to be really aggressive in finding that best price for the county. However, this does give the flexibility to the mayor and other constitutional officers to allow them to where if we have a really sticky situation or maybe it doesn't really qualify as an emergency, but it's really important, this does give them some flexibility along with the constitutional officers, the ability to try to to not have to wait 30 days to go through the bid process. But that would move our quote limit is always 40% of the bid threshold, and that's set by state law.
And one thing I will mention is that one of the options is some of the departments got in a bind. They could come to the mayor and request a special purchasing meeting. So that is another option to try to speed up this process some. Any other questions from Michael on this, or any of the department heads that are here that would like to speak? If anybody's got a question on the committee, now's the time to ask. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
We have a motion and a second.
We have a motion and a second. That's right. Sorry. Any further discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino? Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Okay. That gets us down to other business. To my knowledge, there is no other business other than don't see us between now and Christmas. I hope you all have a happy holiday. So,
Mr. Chairman, if Michael and Mark, if you guys could make a hard copy of the schedule, the budget schedule for next year, and have them on Commissioner's desk next Thursday night.
I'll have it on the desk, and then we'll make sure it's updated online. And then anybody that needs an additional copy, please let me know, and I'll be glad to email it to you electronically as well.
okay, so we'll be getting that on our desk and emails, and he'll probably even text it to you if you talk nice to him. Any other business? We're adjourned.